I'm Jordan Hatfield. This is Faster Film Critic. Today on the show, we talk The Bride with Kolter and Chase. The Bride is a 2026 dark romantic psychological drama directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal, starring Jessie Buckley, Christian Bale, and Annette Bening. Do you know who I think would really love this film? Ed Gein, man. I think he'd be into it. Get in. We're going cinephile'n. Kolter, I got a feeling you're into dead chicks. Are you into dead chicks?
Nothing gets me going like a lady cadaver, you know?
Gross. Oh, man, this film's getting a lot of mixed reviews, I'll say.
Well, yeah. That's not a surprise, is it?
No, it's not a surprise, but I did hope for the best.
Yeah.
Let's start talking The Bride, but before you start slinging your tomatoes, let's focus on the positive here, shall we?
Okay.
That sounds like a great idea.
We have been watching some poopers lately.
You're bracing for the tomatoes a little bit too quickly. Come on. Give us a chance.
Okay.
Yeah, have some hope.
Okay, you got one chance. Let's talk about The Bride. Tell me, what'd you guys think?
Chase, be nice. Be gentle. be delicate.
I thought Jessie Buckley was great. Her performance was fantastic. Same with Christian Bale.
Yeah.
I know that when me and you saw the trailer, Jordan, we thought Christian Bale was going to be the weakest part of this. But I think Maggie Gyllenhaal was the weakest part. Christian Bale was pretty safe there.
I mean, obviously Christian Bale listens to our show, so I want to take just a moment and apologize to you, Christian, because I doubted you. I made the statement going in that I thought you would be the wink link in this movie, and I was wrong. So officially, I apologize.
The trailer didn't really do him justice.
Yeah, agreed. I thought he came across in the trailers as being a little maybe cartoonish in a way that I didn't think would work.
Yeah.
But I was wrong. I thought Christian Bale was great. Let's talk about Frank for a minute. What did you guys... I mean, coming off of Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, it's hard not to compare him to Jacob Elordi.
Yeah.
Guillermo del Toro's take on Frankenstein was very different than Maggie Gyllenhaal's take. I mean, these are two completely different films, and it's a little bit surprising because Maggie Gyllenhaal gives space for Mary Shelley in her movie.
Yeah.
I mean, Mary Shelley has a character in the film, and yet Frankenstein's monster does not represent Mary Shelley's Frankenstein's monster. It represents kind of the beast that we've come to know through Halloween costumes.
Yeah.
And Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein is very similar, I think, to what Mary Shelley originally represented in her novel. Yeah. But never mind all that. Let's talk about Christian Bale. I thought he was great as this monster. I liked his representation of the monster. I liked his look. I liked the way he portrayed emotional complexity. I thought that his character was represented quite well in the film.
Yeah. I wonder if he enjoyed returning back to Gotham.
Not well enough to bring back the Batman voice.
I was really surprised how much it felt like a Gotham universe movie.
Maybe a little more Joker folie à deux than The Dark Knight?
I don't know. There's also way too many parallels to Batman here with Maggie Gyllenhaal, Christian Bale. I don't know. It's not feeling right. It doesn't feel like Frankenstein.
That's funny. I didn't pick up on any Batman themes other than the obvious Joker folie à deux, which felt very similar in a lot of ways.
It definitely felt Gotham, the grittiness of it all.
Yeah, the mobster aspect and the seedy underworld kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. But what did you guys think of Frank?
Well, I think if not for what Christian Bale decided to do with his character and perhaps how he was directed, he was probably the only real sympathetic character in the movie. He's also kind of a pathetic character, but I think it was an interesting kind of portrayal. This kind of quiet, subdued, also full of this kind of inner rage, and he's got this tones of loneliness to his characters that I think he pulled off really well. I think he understood exactly what the point of his character was, and I think he did. I think all the actors in the movie were exceptional. But yeah, I think he was kind of the perfect fit for, the Bride's. Jessie Buckley's kind of chaotic. She's far more cartoonish, and it's a nice compliment to kind of her character and the chaos that surrounds her.
There was one scene early in the film where Frank is sitting across a desk from Dr. Euphronius, and he has been kind of a monster up until this point. She starts talking to him about his desire for love. And he looks up at her and he gets this big smile on his face. And it was amazing to me the way his entire countenance changed in this scene. Like, you could just see his romantic side come through with such power.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment that I was like, yeah, this is going to work for me.
Yeah.
As far as Christian Bale's casting is concerned.
Yeah.
It put a big smile on my face. I was like, this is going to work. I love his aesthetic, his gruesomeness.
Much more classic.
And I think that his romantic side really came through in this film.
Yeah.
More so than most other Frankenstein monster movies.
Agreed. Yeah. Shit, even when his face is covered, he'll look over and give the bride a little look with just his eyes. It's very kind of almost endearing.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. My one criticism here is I wish that he had more opportunity to be a monster. Like, they hit the romantic side of his character out of the park. I don't know that they hit the monstrous side out of the park. As far as aesthetic, yes, but as far as personality, I wish that he would have had opportunity to kind of drive more fear.
Sure. Well, I mean, this is definitely the lady's story, and not just the brides, but everybody, the doctors, the detectives, this kind of similar uprising as we saw in Joker Folly at Ducks. This movie did what the sequel to Joker was trying to do in a much more competent way. Yeah, the performances are what saves this movie. It has some issues that I'm sure we'll get kind of into those.
Let's talk about Jessie Buckley for a minute, because I think she is my favorite actress in Hollywood. I think she's arguably one of the best actresses working today.
Sure.
But she's personally becoming one of my favorite. I think she's absolutely fantastic.
She is.
I've heard a lot of people claim that her portrayal here of the bride is less than stellar, and I disagree with that. I thought her performance was great.
Yeah, a bold choice to have her playing both herself and sort of depiction of playing Mary Shelley as well. An odd thing. It's explained to us very succinctly as we go into the movie itself. Why that's the case, we don't know. It works better than it should, but not always. But Jessie Buckley's background in theater, it shines through. I mean, she can act superbly. She can sing. She can dance. I mean, she's very impressive.
I want to talk about her aesthetic for a minute, because her costume design, I thought, was absolutely brilliant. The black stain on her cheek and on her lips, and her bright dress and her hair, her shoes. I just thought the look of the bride in this was absolutely fantastic, and it totally fit kind of the chaotic tone of her personality in the film itself. I loved the casting choice of Jessie Buckley here. I loved her aesthetic, and there were moments in this film where I loved everything about her.
I don't think there's a single thing that you can criticize her for that wouldn't have been the director's shortcoming. I mean, she really is mesmerizing. When she's in the beginning, there's a lot more of this back and forth between her character and Mary Shelley, and it does come across as a little theatrical in some spots. I'm like, oh, the scene in particular before she gets pushed down the stairs. It's like an actor's spotlight. I mean, she's going through all these, different dialects and mannerisms but extremely impressive. I don't think anybody but her could have handled that kind of material in the way that she did.
And that stair scene, by the way, when she falls down the stairs, that is one of the greatest stair falls that I think I've seen in a movie. It was so cool.
Yeah.
When she's falling down those stairs, I was like, dang.
Yeah.
I think the bride's character, she's strange and she's got a volatile energy. She's almost feral in some ways. Yeah. And yet she's also seductive and tragic. Her character is quite complex. She's unpredictable. She's confrontational. She's defiant.
Yes.
Very rebellious in a lot of ways. Yes. And then there's this Mary Shelley possession thing going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And tell me, how did that work for you? Let's talk about Mary Shelley's part in the bride's character for a moment.
I didn't think it added much to the story, at least not for me. It only confused me. I don't really get the reasoning behind a choice like that, especially changing Mary Shelley's personality so much to be like so brash. I don't know. I just didn't really get it. What did you think, Jordan?
It definitely made it more complex. It feels to me like the film was trying to say, more specifically, Maggie Gyllenhaal was trying to say something about the creator versus the creation. It kind of blurs the line between the creator and the creation.
Yeah.
It feels almost as though the film is trying to say there's always an umbilical cord running from the creator to the creation. In Bride of Frankenstein, the bride is built by a scientist.
Yeah.
And in The Bride, it kind of shifts that power from the scientist to the author. Here, the bride isn't just a scientific creation, it's a literary one. And I think that what Maggie Gyllenhaal is trying to do is focus in on the relationship between the creator and the creation. And I think she was trying to bring Mary Shelley in and make her a part of the bride in a much more physical and meaningful way.
Yeah.
I think that's what she was going for.
I would agree with that. I also think that there's a very obvious statement of feminism in this, and that is fine so long as we as an audience are understanding why. In other words, you've got this character who's got all this rage and there's all this chaos, and she's got a drive that she doesn't herself completely understand, but we don't know why. We don't know where that rage is coming from. We don't know where that trauma is coming from. We don't know what's driving it, aside from a couple of borderline cheesy interactions with this mobster element of the film, which I think is the weakest part, where you've just kind of got this tacked on as this guy, this mob boss who cuts out ladies' tongues, silencing voices, patriarchal kind of thing that we've seen before. But what are you trying to say about it? There's something missing, like that. We talked about Wuthering Heights is a movie that doesn't have anything to say, and we approach that a little bit with this. And I think that this being Maggie Gyllenhaal's second film, there's a little bit of an experience that shows through here, which are probably my main nitpicks about this movie. They're stronger than nitpicks, but it's the tone. We've got a pretty strong setup between Frank and the bride, and it's more fun to kind of watch her be confused, and she's retaining some of her character, even though she doesn't remember her, pretty naturally. But then it slowly starts to descend into this chaos and madness that isn't quite fully motivated. And the choice to, use almost the spirit of Mary Shelley to complicate her character and not kind of being told why, as an audience, or shown why, it was a little frustrating. And it was interesting, but it was almost like it was done for the sake of highlighting Jessie Buckley's acting prowess. And for that to work, I need to know why. I need to know more about what the character experienced that's driving them towards this philosophy than a couple lines by a detective 3/4 of the way through the movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Maggie Gyllenhaal was trying to tie the creation back to the creator. That was her goal, but I don't think she succeeded in that goal. I think it was very messy.
Yeah.
You brought up tone. You brought up tone several times in your comments, and I think the tone here is very complicated.
Yes.
There's mixes of horror and romance and musical elements and dark comedy. I mean, it's gothic. There's surreal drama. There's stylized musical moments.
Yeah.
The tone almost feels unstable and unpredictable, like the characters at the center of the story. Unstable and unpredictable. Yeah. I actually liked the tone of this movie. Did it work for you?
I would say for the first act, maybe the second part of the second act, as the movie progresses, it starts to collapse under its own weight. And it's not quite, it just kind of loses sight of what it is, and it starts to fall through the foundation that it created in the first part for me.
Yeah, I enjoyed the first half a lot more than the second half. Once the detectives were introduced and we got that musical number, it was like, all right, this is not going where I expected. Tonally, that's where it really slipped up for me.
Have you guys seen the original 1935 Bride of Frankenstein?
I haven't.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the creation scene. In Bride of Frankenstein, Frankenstein's monster brings this woman up to Dr. Pistorius's lab. And, I mean, you've seen clips of it, whether you've seen the movie or not. They hook her up to the bed. They've got all the electrical equipment and the Jacob's ladders and the Van de Graaff generators and all the things. And they put her on the bed, and they send the kites up into the sky, waiting for the lightning to strike and inject some electricity into this dead body and bring her to life. That scene in Bride of Frankenstein is magnificent. Man, it is...
Oh, yeah.
It is so cool. The movie's about 75 minutes long, This scene is only about 5, and that 5 minutes completely justify the entire film.
Yeah, it's pretty iconic.
It is so cool. Elsa Lancaster plays the bride, and her physical appearance, she's only on screen for just a couple of minutes. And she has no dialogue in Bride of Frankenstein. And just visually, her appearance on screen completely justifies watching Bride of Frankenstein. I highly recommend you check that film out, but particularly the lab scene with the mad scientist, Dr. Pretorius. It's really, really cool. And I was a little disappointed by the she's alive scene here in The Bride. You know, I did think Annette Bening was really cool as Dr. Euphronius.
Yeah.
And her lab was cool, but compared to that 1935 film, I just expected more here. There was a moment where she's coming to life and it flips to black and white. I think it's a negative, actually. They might have flipped the film to a negative. That was a really cool and creative choice. I liked that quite a bit.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to compare it to the 1935 version with the low tech and the small scale special effects, I mean, this film was made 91 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was superior. That scene is really, really cool. In The Bride of Frankenstein, not so cool, relatively speaking, in The Bride. That kind of let me down a little bit.
Yeah, agreed. It's almost like, both from a character standpoint, the doctor's character, she seems fairly normal until Frank is like, yeah, can we dig up a body and bring her back to life? She's like, I don't know. He's like, well, you're a mad scientist, I thought. She's like, okay, let's do it. It was kind of weird. And then the whole scene did feel a little bit rushed. It was kind of, I expected more sciencey stuff. And I expected a little bit more pizzazz instead of what it was, which was, I think, just an actor's showcase. And yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
Okay, guys. Chase specifically, I know you're itching to throw some tomatoes. But before we do, is there anything else about this film that you liked that you want to comment on?
Again, the performances, the aesthetic, the production design are all top notch. I mean, I love, it's a big swing to have Mary Shelley as a character kind of intervene into the real world and fuse herself with this character. I love that, when we see her, it's basically she's like in this dark void, this spirit world where she's decided to fixate on Buckley's character and come back to life. The movie it's trying to say a lot. Again, I don't think it quite hits those notes at all, but if I'm thinking about a movie after I've seen it, and as I'm doing with this one, that means there was some complexity to it. There was some food for thought that required a little bit more dissection. And I think a lot of it works, and some of it doesn't, and it's disappointing when there's a vision that's very strong. It's paced very intentionally. It's thoughtful. Big chaos is a hard thing to depict, and it's a hard thing to follow naturally as an audience member. So, in fairness, kind of like Jojo Rabbit, I'm still, complex movies or complex themes, I think they require a little bit of thought provocation and dissection. It's no different than this. It's just, I think that there's so many things kind of thrown at you early in the movie, and you're trying to follow. Because what I really wanted to know is I wanted to know more about Ida, and we just didn't get that. We were getting little pieces here and there, but for me to love a character and root for a character and be behind a character despite their flaws, despite their actions, I need to know more about who they were before. We didn't even really find out until, like I said, 3/4 of the movie when Sarsgaard's character, the detective, is explaining a little bit about her background, and it just wasn't enough. I mean, it's fun enough via the performances to kind of go along for the ride, but man, I really want to sink my teeth in. I think it was easier to do that with Christian Bale's Frank because he was a more sympathetic character, but because Ida's kind of she's this force of nature and chaotic, and there's all this screaming and noise making, but there's not a ton of setup or kind of explanation for it, and I was really wanting that, and I think that's kind of what I said when the movie starts to kind of sink through the floor under its own weight, and it sort of falls through at the ending.
Yeah, I mean, I got to give Maggie Gyllenhaal credit for the swing.
Yeah.
I think she shows a ton of ambition in trying to make this film.
Yes.
There's a lot of themes. There's themes of identity and authorship and sexuality and power and creation. There's a lot of ideas in this film, and I think you just hit it on the head for me, Kolter. And I'm just kind of thinking through this for the first time. I think there's so much that Maggie Gyllenhaal wants to say that not only does it get convoluted in the story, but she forgets about the characters.
Yeah.
That it's really more concept rather than people. And that really hits my biggest critique of this film. I thought the film was beautiful in a gritty, dark, ugly kind of way.
Yeah.
I thought the characters were really interesting in that I wanted to spend time with them and I wanted to know more about them, but I was never emotionally pulled into the characters.
Right.
I think you're absolutely right. I think there were so many different ideas coming at me that there wasn't any room left to emotionally connect to the bride. As much as I love Jessie Buckley, and I love her chaotic, feral, defiant nature in this film. She's psychotic, and I enjoyed that aspect. It just, I needed something more than just Frank saying, I need a wife, let's inject some life into this dead body, and then we just kind of follow him around for the rest of the film. There is no real purpose. It's kind of a day in the life of these two monsters.
Right.
So I needed that emotional tie, and that's what was absent for me personally in the film.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to love here. However, most people's reactions to the film are quite negative, and I think that's because it's messy. I think most people are saying this film is messy. What is it that you guys didn't like?
Tonally, I didn't like it. Like I said, halfway through is when the problems really started with the detective subplot, the dance sequence. Her whole monologue during the dance sequence, I can't remember if it's before or after, but I just thought that was silly that she's taking this celebrity, holding him at gunpoint in front of all these police officers, and they're not doing anything about it. They're just letting her go on and on and on and on. I think at its core, it's really just the emotional connection to the characters. I never really felt that. I think that's what I wanted most from this.
Yeah, I agree. The story is cohesive in the sense that I can follow what's happening.
Yeah.
But as far as themes and emotional draw to characters, it did feel very messy. There's no question about that.
I think this is kind of a common issue with actors turned directors, is that sometimes they understand the craft and they understand the story structure, and they're able to integrate all these things in a way that works. But then you've got some directors, that formerly actors, that kind of treat this as like a showcase for performances, and that can be fun too. And I think that's largely what this movie ends up being, as a showcase for just exemplary acting. And I don't think there's a fault at all in the performances, and if there is, it's attributed to the directing. But from an academic standpoint, I think we've kind of captured why it doesn't work as a film. But you got your people out there that are kind of upset or disconnected because of the heavy feminist elements. And again, that can work if we're understanding why, what's driving the characters. And this, I feel like the use of Mary Shelley's character kind of fusing or possessing Ida's is kind of an underdeveloped idea that is just meant to kind of create chaos. That can be fun if that's your cup of tea, but I think it's not quite focused enough to work. And it doesn't give you enough to chew on. Because, if you're going to go with a Bonnie and Clyde route, which is very much kind of what these two end up, the journey they end up on is very much Bonnie and Clyde. There needs to be something that you're rooting for these characters. You want to see them get away. You want to see them live their life. Yeah, it's heading towards a tragic end, but you want to kind of have a little bit of fun with them along the way. And with this, we kind of don't. I mean, this mobster element that, like I said, feels tacked on, which is a shame, because I think there's so much about this movie that does work exceptionally well. I mean, I love there's that scene where Ida's head is in this glass kind of jar. It's very 1930s-esque. I mean, it looks like the soft focus, and just visually, aesthetically, there's a ton of creativity going on here. It's just not, I don't know that Maggie Gyllenhaal's quite there in honing those skills. I mean, this is a big piece. You compare this to her first film, which I did not see, but it was very simple. Applaud the effort. It just doesn't quite, it doesn't hit its mark, and it does become a little exhausting. But at the same time, I'm still thinking about it a little bit. It's still resonating for some reason. So it's not a complete miss. It's just messy. Like you said, Jordan, it's a good word for it, messy.
I wouldn't call this a miss. I think it does miss in some key areas, and I think that's really unfortunate. This film is no masterpiece, but there are things about it that I really liked, and I think it's worth watching.
Right.
I want to talk about the feminist aspect of the film, because I actually enjoy a feminist story. And I think The Bride is a perfect character to tell a feminist story. You know, Bride of Frankenstein is often considered one of the greatest horror sequels ever made. And although I would push back on that some, I do view the imagery in Bride of Frankenstein to be incredibly iconic. And yet, here is a woman. I mean, the entire movie is Bride of Frankenstein. The title of the film is Bride of Frankenstein, and she has no dialogue, and she's on screen for 3 minutes. Visually, she is very, very strong, but that's all she offers. And so to take that classic monster story, to bring it to 1930s Chicago, and to give the woman not just a voice, but a strong character, someone who's not going to be pushed around and listen to the man in the room all the time. I really, really like that. I think that really, really works. So I wouldn't criticize the feminist aspect of the film. Sounds like you would a little bit.
Who, me?
Yeah,
Who,
either.
me?
Either.
Talking to me? No. I think it's a perfect backdrop for it. For that to work, I want to know about the character's background, what makes her who she is, so that I can be behind it fully. But the 30s is an excellent backdrop for that, considering Chase brought this up earlier, the misogynistic aspect of society. Not that it was every single dude was thinking a certain way or every single woman was being subjugated, but certainly it was more prevalent back then than it is now. I want to know how this girl got to where she is today. Not only did they give her a voice, they gave her some power in this.
Yes.
And we got to see a little bit more of, like, you know, women in society, all of a sudden they've got the same kind of ink-stained cheek and this movement that I found to be a bit more believable than what we saw in the Joker sequel. And again, I was hoping for what we were supposed to get in the Joker sequel realized in this movie, where they're kind of out together, they're kind of growing together, they're growing on each other, and then there's as there should be, kind of this realization through the movie that Frank has lied to her too. This is one more guy in her life that's treated her like shit. That doesn't bother me at all. I just wanted to be able to identify and relate to her enough. There should be almost a sick sense in people that kind of want to see her succeed despite all the horrible things that she's doing, because that's what kind of it's a weird kind of reward I want to see. You know, I don't want to just see tragedy for the sake of tragedy, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think we all agree the story is messy. The narrative here is a little bit messy. The themes are a little bit messy. Let's go ahead and rate The Bride on a scale of 1 to 5. What do you guys give it?
2.5 stars on The Bride. I think aesthetically it's really cool. Some scenes feel a little bit too heavy-handed, like the entire dialogue is built around trying to get a certain message across instead of actually communicating between the characters. I think it also villainizes the world in a weird way that's probably supposed to draw you to its two main characters. I think from that perspective it takes too many liberties. I think it oversimplifies the issue, make the men look rapey, every man look rapey, and kill them, and the mobsters, you know, a symbol for the patriarch cutting out the tongues. I don't know. I think it could have been a little bit more creative. My favorite element of the film, which I wish would have been explored more, is that Frankenstein got his kind of idea and passion, his want for a partner, by watching Hollywood films. I thought that was so cool. And I wish there would have been a little bit more of that. Idealization of relationship and love. But for me, that was the strongest part of the film. I'm going to go 2.5.
This is complex to rate. You're right, man. I really loved, we didn't talk much about that, but there's an aspect of romance to his amorous relationship to this kind of fictionalized thing. And it's interesting. I mean, if I'm rating this on actors' performances, it's probably a 4.5, maybe even a 5. I mean, I do think Jessie Buckley is phenomenal. It's a beautifully shot movie. It's directed exceptionally well in some parts, and I think borderline poorly in others. Visually, it's stunning. I did find the movie to be a bit exhausting. Predictable in parts and completely unpredictable in others, which interesting. So it's really hard. I mean, I feel like if I saw this movie with a different audience, my brother loved it. It's a tough movie to rate. I think I would teeter between a 3.5 and a 3, but because I think it's such a unique concept and it's such a unique idea, but all these concepts and ideas weren't balanced well, or they weren't executed to their full potential, probably settle at a 3 for now. but that could very well change over time. And I think Maggie Gyllenhaal is flexing some muscle. I think she's got a ton of potential, but there were some things in here that just didn't quite work. But overall, I enjoyed the experience. I was just a little perplexed and a little frustrated at the end of the movie. So, yeah, let's go with 3.
Well, all right. Guys, I think there's a lot to love in The Bride. I think Jessie Buckley can steal a scene with a single look, and she does so multiple times here. I think her design is genuinely magnificent. Christian Bale is quite strong as Frank, but I do think he needed more opportunity to be a monster. I wanted to see more fear from him, but I do think his romantic side was convincingly portrayed. Overall tone, a little messy, but I liked it. I thought it worked for me. The setting gives the movie both grit and a strange kind of glamour that I appreciated. It is a movie full of ideas, striking imagery, and unmistakable artistic ambition. Sometimes that works in its favor, sometimes it works against it. Like the creature at its center, I feel like the story is stitched together from multiple compelling parts, but it never fully comes alive. Guys, I'm going to give this 3 stars as well. We want to know, what did you think of The Bride? Please tell us. One thing cannot be overstated. People who recommend great movies are important people in your lives. I am going to recommend a great movie. Jessie Buckley just won an Oscar for Hamnet. The Oscar-winning Jessie Buckley was fantastic in The Bride. If you are a fan of the Oscar-winning Jessie Buckley and have not seen Wicked Little Letters, you need to fix this now. It was released in 2023, directed by Thea Sharrock. It stars the Oscar-winning Jessie Buckley, Olivia Colman, and Timothy Spall. This English comedy is absolutely hilarious. There's something about this film that I just found incredibly charming. That may be a really funny way to describe this film, but to me, this film was charming, incredibly funny, and it's based on a true story. Wicked Little Letters, I highly recommend it. Thank you for listening to Faster Film Critic, and please join us next week when we talk Project Hail Mary. You can also follow us on Letterboxd, Cinetrack, and Instagram. Email us at fasterfilmcritic@gmail.com. Hit us up with questions, comments, feedback, review requests, and share this episode with your movie-loving friends.